Hey, hello there, everyone. That was the sea shanty by my guest that I shared today on the update. And we just started speaking. We thought, and we were going to arrange to do an interview, and he said, "Well, let's just do it now." So here he is. This is Mr. Menno. Hello, Mr. Menno. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
It's a great song, and wonderful to see the LGB Alliance celebrated in this way. After yesterday, another publication called them a hate group,
Yeah.
or ran a hit piece on them. And it's wonderful to see them being celebrated in this way. How did you come to know them, and how did you come to write the song?
I found out about LGBT Alliance last year, I think around the summer. No, before that. And it was just interesting to me, as well as shocking, to see how quickly they were put down as a hate group, right? Because, right, okay, sorry, just remembering now. So I think it was in January this year that all these people running for the Labour Party leadership position, after Corbyn sort of threw in the towel, apart from Keir Starmer, they all signed this letter saying that the LGBT Alliance is a hate group. And I just thought, how is it possible that a bunch of gays, lesbians, and bisexuals getting together are denounced as a hate group?
Yeah.
Just because they say we're same-sex attracted and sexual orientation is very different from gender identity. And I've had arguments, on social with people who say it's a hate group, and it's like, based on what? And then you get all this, neo-Nazis and right-wing money and all the conspiracy theories.
They never have any evidence. They never have any. They can never back it up. They don't back it up.
Just one like 10 minutes ago saying they don't even support gay people and gay rights, and they're against gay marriage. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Which is all based on, once they tweeted a graph that showed that not all same-sex attracted people want to get married or even believe in the institution of marriage. That's all they're saying. But that's then twisted into they oppose gay marriage, which is ridiculous.
And of course, a lot of people in the gay community also opposed gay marriage when it came up. But
even in Stonewall, they were split on it in 2016 or something. But that doesn't seem to matter, right? They're just picking at straws, I guess. But the question I ask people online is it okay for lesbians and gays and bisexuals to have a space just for themselves?
Yeah.
And then they can't say no. But then even with, it's just like everything has to be about the tea. We always have to have the tea represented or to speak on behalf of things. And it's like, look, like even that webinar that the LGBT Alliance had, this was specifically for gay men to talk about stuff that affects gay men.
Yeah.
And again, somebody said, you need to have a trans person there. And it's like, we're just gay guys talking about gay stuff among ourselves. Is that okay? And have we just, they call it it's like, how does it make sense?
It's extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it. There's two examples, I think, of it's almost like a deliberate mass brainwashing. One is the LGBT Alliance, who you cannot hear about on the BBC, certainly, without them being described as controversial or even a hate group or anti-trans. They always ignore the fact that they're supported by Debbie Hayton, a trans woman, and that Miranda Yardley spoke at the wrong kind of trans. Yes, exactly. But the interesting thing about the sea shanty is that its existence, I mean, obviously it's a rousing song, but its existence kind of proves the need for the LGBT Alliance, because how many people are singing on the track? How many people are in there?
Four.
There's 4 people in there. And you told me that the other 3 people are scared to put their names to it because of the hatred they'll get. Is that right?
Yes. And even me talking to you now with my face is me taking a risk, which is this is the craziness of it all. So what I want the world to see is they always lump us together as the LGBTQIA2PNB plus whatever. We all represent very different things. So the L, the G, and the B is about same-sex attraction. And this is based on us acknowledging the reality of our sex bodies, you know, and that we are attracted to the same sex.
Yes.
And for the way I see it is our house is on fire, right? If we must see this as one community, family, all that kind of stuff, our house is on fire because there's a woman called Jennifer Bilak who's done so much research into all the money funding this movement. And she points things out with such clarity. And she said, how can they not see that same-sex attracted people are now under an umbrella with people who are denying what sex is?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they keep sort of shaming us into, and this emotional blackmail of, you have to stand with the T because you went through all that shit before, so now you have to stand with them. And
yes,
this is
even though it's a completely
saying,
different experience and a completely different
different thing.
Why don't you tell people, because this blew me away when you told me, tell people a great example of this happening, this kind of new fashionable homophobia. Tell us about the Facebook dating service.
Oh God, I just saw that this morning. It's incredible. So apparently Facebook now has a Facebook dating feature or app or whatever. So one gay guy, he posted some screen grabs of it, where if as a gay man, you want to use the Facebook dating feature or the app, whatever it is, you need to pick a gender identity. I haven't, and it's like, but I don't have one.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy because I'm a guy. And that's transphobic now, just saying that. But and then the other thing is you have to say what you're interested in or who you're looking for. And
yes.
the choice you have as a gay man is all men or trans man. So all man includes trans man. So as a gay man, you don't have a choice to not have females in your potential dating pool. And it made me think, bloody hell, you know, one thing that gay guys do on dating apps is they share pictures of their genitals because we love it.
Oh, so you're the ones who like it.
I'm a homosexual male who likes dick. Why is that controversial?
Yeah.
But it is. And it's like, okay, well, if you use the Facebook app, it's even more reason to ask for a cock shot because you just want to know what you're gonna get, right?
Yeah. I saw a terrible thing once. I don't want to segue too much into one of my own anecdotes, but I saw this trans man, and she was obviously very young, and she was confused. She was literally confused because gay men weren't interested in having sex with her. And she said, and they said to her, and she said, you know, they're all talking about, you know, oh, well, no, wait a second, excuse me. No, it was a straight, it's so confusing sometimes. It was a trans man who wants to have sex, with women. So this was a lesbian, okay? But she identified as a man. And then when these lesbians or when these straight women would see his genitals, which are female, they would get out of the situation. And this person who's been so fucked up by gender identity ideology was confused by this and actually said, "What's their problem? I have a drawer full of dildos." It's like,
but you know, there's a song for that I'm working on. You may have a drawer full of dildos, and I may use that as a lyric for the song, but there is nothing like a dick, nothing in the world.
But I find it really upsetting that these young kids are being sold such a horrible lie, and they're altering their bodies on the basis of it. It's really, really upsetting.
There is Stella O'Malley. She put it really well in her documentary, Trans Kids We Need to Talk. There was a very poignant moment where she was in the car and she was very upset after having just seen, I think, a girl who detransitioned. And it's the only time in the documentary that we hear the voice of the person, the camera person, saying like, why are you upset? And Stella said, I think they're being led.
Yeah.
And this is where one of the areas that I'm so concerned about, because if had I been a 9, 10, 12-year-old today, I may well be going down that route. And that scares me. What scares me even more is something I only recently found out. So I have a twin sister. And whereas I was the singing, dancing, pretty boy, she was up in the trees or down the
Yeah.
street beating up kids, or she was catching fish and then dissecting them in the back garden, you know.
Yeah.
And people would joke that, you know, in my mum's womb, something got mixed up. And we're like, we're
Yes.
fine the way we are.
Yes. Yes.
And I think it's so important that we allow this diversity. This is real diversity, is to embrace your sex and to not let it stop you from having any kind of interest and any kind of personality, rather than what the likes of Sam Smith are doing, which I think is a selling out of not just gay men, but manhood in itself, if you like. He can only accept himself as flamboyant by denouncing his sex. Just to get back to my twin, I was on the phone with her a few weeks ago, and we started talking about puberty. And for her, puberty was very distressful because, you know, as for many girls, it's so different for girls than for guys. You know, for guys, it's kind of cool because, you know, stuff gets bigger. You're like, yeah.
Yes. Well, maybe in your
toys.
case. You looked out there, Mr. Menno.
Oh, God. Oh, man. That just reminds me of my first ever orgasm, which was terrifying. But I mean, but hardly as terrifying as when a girl, you know, obviously starts menstruating.
Yes.
And my sister was like, she told me, she said, I just wanted to slice off my breasts. I hated it because up until that point, she'd always seen herself as a boy. And I've heard this from other girls, that they see themselves as a boy because there's no reason to think they're not a boy until obviously the body says, right, we're going to get the show on the road and here's a reality check. Plus, obviously, how men look differently at girls once they start developing. There's that horrible expression. Once there's grass on the wicket, it's time to play cricket. You know, it's just, it's just horrendous. And hearing my sister say that, it just gets me going. Because to think, you know, that she could have been on that train just because people wouldn't want to talk her through stuff or really work through stuff, you know, because if you work, and obviously they would now call this conversion therapy, which is just crazy. I have a rule, which is see the human, see the full human, meaning you want to understand the whole picture around this person. What is making them tick? Why do they see the world the way they do? What is bothering them? What's underneath that? Because so often what we think is very limited in terms of how, you know, as a reflection on what's really going on. And I just saw like a mindfulness coach this morning. He just said, we are not our thoughts. And I thought, how interesting, because that mindfulness coach was also the one congratulating Elliot Page on now being a man. And I'm like, well, if you're saying that you're not your thoughts, then how can how you identify be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
But that, I mean, that I find that aspect kind of wrestling with a pig. You know that phrase, because like I think once you engage them on that level, it's just madness. None of their reasoning stands up. Nothing stands up. And as every time it hits into reality, like for instance, Ellen Page is a very good example. Recently, her wife has said she's has applied for divorce. Because of course, when Ellen Page identifies as a man, that turns her wife into a straight woman. So you can Sorry, far away. No, you go first.
This is where I think for a while I was looking at all this, I call it gender woo-woo, and people being away with the gender fairies, because to not use those terms would give it credibility and like it's real, and a lot of it is magical thinking. And that's not to say that the people who are going through all this stuff are are bad or crazy, but it's like there is a reality that goes beyond what you think about yourself. There's more to us than our self-perception. There is so much
Yes.
more to us. And it's fascinating to me as well. The more you look into how the body works, how much has nothing to do with what we think. I saw a show by Ruby Wax a few years ago, because she'd written 2 books about depression, and she did a show. And in that show, she said something that really stuck with me, because she was talking about all these voices that we have in our head, right? That tell us that we're shit, or we're bad people, or you're not good enough for this, or you're crap, or you'll never amount to anything. All that kind of stuff in your mind, all these doubts, or some people call it the inner critic. And she just said, while all these voices are going on, and while you're putting yourself down, your nails are growing, your hair is growing, you're digesting food, and you're producing white blood cells and red blood cells. All this stuff is happening, and those voices have nothing to do with it. So the point she made was, those voices aren't running the show.
Yeah.
And what I would like to see is a lot more sense of how we are our bodies, and our bodies are us. The way that bodies are being talked about is just like it's some meat sack, or like somebody, a non-binary person, called it a prison of flesh. And it's just like, it's this disassociation and disconnecting. So no wonder that the younger kids are getting more and more confused, because now they're all trying to figure out who they are along very vacuous lines. It's like, I'd like to be known for being someone who's creative or very curious, the qualities of your character, rather than all this superficial stuff that you hang stuff up on.
Yes, this categorization, this constant desire to categorize things, and the amount of flags and names, and it's like, I just think that sometimes I wonder whether, in the absence of great art, maybe people kind of descend into endless kind of navel gazing. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing out there that's bringing you out of yourself. It feels like when, like, Bowie, great example. Bowie, great art, and all those kind of internal feelings of experimentation with your presentation and so on got kind of channeled into this wonderful figure who made people feel braver about being themselves. But this is almost like a threat. This always comes couched in a threat, and that brings me back to something I really want to speak to you a little bit more about. What are can you tell me a little bit about the people, without giving any of their information away, who kind of did the song with you, and why are they worried? What do they think will happen if they're known?
Right. Well, first of all, obviously, I knew the reception that LGB Alliance got. I knew there were those MPs that wanted to be Labour leader. And they denounced them as a hate group, like they're on par with the KKK. I mean, this is the craziness of it all. And I remember I was with a group of guys, bunch of gay guys, in the pub, and I mentioned LGB Alliance, and it's like, you've seen these videos where somebody has like a bottle of Coca-Cola and they put a mint in, and it just goes.
Yeah. What happened?
That's what happened. It's a hate group.
What
do you base that on? Anyways, in that conversation, I just brought up 2 different points of view from trans people, right? So we have a trans person saying this, and we have another trans person saying that. So I just said, these are 2 trans people. They're saying absolutely opposing things. So if they can't agree on things themselves, then how are we supposed to make sense of it? And I got called a shit stirrer. And it got very aggressive and very tense, just in that lovely moment in the pub, right? So I already knew how quickly it gets contentious. Then, last year, what was it? July or August, lockdown was over, went for a little barbecue thing in somebody's back garden. And there was a woman, and she asked, what's all this stuff about J.K. Rowling being a transphobe? And I was like, well, I've just done 18 months of research. Let me tell you all about it. And then this other guy, a gay guy, again, just blew up. He just went nuts. And whatever I said about women and women's rights and girls, I was being a bigot and a transphobe. And this is just a bunch of people who know each other having a nice barbecue. So you can't talk about it. And that's when I thought, this is what women have been putting up with for so long. That women aren't allowed to call themselves women or talk about being female. It's like your language is being taken away from you to even talk about what you are. And now we're seeing the same thing with sexuality. So obviously, and then there was that whole saga with Boys Magazine being cancelled and the whole backlash because of one tweet where they said, hey, here's a webinar. Why don't you have a listen?
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. So I already knew how loaded it was. So when LGBT Alliance approached me and said, hey, can you do a sea shanty for us? Because it's all over TikTok, we sea shanties. I thought, okay, well, great. So I wrote the lyrics. What's really interesting about the sea shanties, I always like to do some research before I do something, is that the sea shanties sort of came about because you got all these people working on a ship and they all have to be synchronized or in rhythm, you know, do it in the same rhythm. That's where the rhythms of the songs come from. Okay. And you get the same thing in the, right, so if they're pulling a rope, it's like, soon will the Wellerman come to bring us honey and tea and rum, you know, it's all about rhythm and people being aligned and working together towards a common goal. And I thought that's really symbolic for this now. And for us to be able to say, we are lesbians, we are gays, we are bisexuals. And as lesbians, we know that lesbians don't have penises. Just stop that. And similarly, gay men don't have vaginas and don't go for pregnancy tests.
Sometimes the homophobia of it just kicks me in the arse again. I can't get over that we're having this conversation in this century. I mean, what is going on? What is going on?
But here we are. We know that this has been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence. So we can sit here and go, oh, what's going on? And I do that frequently, but then I say to myself, step away from that because that's not useful. We know this is where we are and this is what we have to work with. Yeah. So let's get practical and let's do something. And that's why I wanted to start just saying, I'm not down with this, you know, Benjamin Buttergasp. Oh, you can't be born in the wrong body. It's like, shut up. And like, who are you? You're a journalist. You've got a big platform and he always makes a fool out of himself when he's on TV. Like when Piers Morgan asks him about these 100 gender identities and he can't explain a single one of them.
His biggest mistake is he does what none of the others do. All the others avoid the cameras because they know they'll end up looking stupid. But Butterworth, unfortunately, whatever it is, his desire to self-promote outweighs his common sense. And he doesn't realize that another interesting thing about the Buttergasp is that he did that. He did that, as you say, at someone saying, you can't be born in the wrong body. He went, oh, and that particular sentence. And of course, a couple of weeks later, it was disavowed by every one of these making up as they go along organizations like Mermaids and Stonewall. It's extraordinary.
And now they're telling us that we came up with the phrase for them. And it's like, okay, stop.
Those just liars. Stop. It's extraordinary. It's amazing.
Yeah. Just stop for a second. Look at how long humans have been around on this earth. And before we were humans, we were primates. Hundreds of thousands of years back. What has not changed? Sperm, egg, lives, magic, boom.
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed. And it's incredible that even saying that would be considered transphobic nowadays. It's absolutely mental. Because if I say, you know, in a crude way, I am a gay man, I like dick. obviously I'm not looking for a dick that's floating around in the air, right? I know that it
No.
comes with a person.
Heaven
I
forfend.
Actually, it could be quite good.
Okay.
But we know the package is part of the package, if you see what I mean, right? A man comes with a penis, a woman comes with a vagina. Oh, you're reducing people to genitals. No, we're saying that this is reality. And to not be able, as gay men especially, right? All these gay men, like David Paisley, it's like, what the hell is going on with that guy? Owen Jones, Benjamin Butterworth. We know what a man is. Stop pretending. Stop pretending. Why is this important? Because in some places, this is not just crazy people online, or people online saying crazy things, rather. You know, in Germany, especially in Berlin, there's a few people that are just have a lot of influence on the gay scene. Everything now has to be queer. So there are spaces that used to be just for gay men, especially intimate spaces, where you now have women who identify as men, and they want to be allowed to be there in these intimate scenarios. And this is where, for me, it gets offensive. And I don't use that word easily, because I'm like, wait a second. So here we have a person, and they're trying to, it's like they're trying to identify into me, like they're carving up parts of my reality and then using it to form their identity. Because if you have a female person saying they're a gay man, it's like, what? And that made me see more sense with, obviously, when lesbians get told that a man with a penis can be a lesbian. It's just like, as you said earlier, the homophobia of it. But when you mention homophobia, no one listens. When you mention transphobia,
It's interesting, isn't it?
Gone very wrong.
Well, I'll tell you. Okay,
isn't sexy anymore.
Here's actually I'll talk about something else a little bit later on, but I still want to speak a little bit about your friends who.
I keep segueing.
Don't worry, it's fine. It's really interesting.
Right,
but I'm just kind of curious.
I wrote the lyrics, and I wanted something. Even with the lyrics, I thought, I don't want to have any references to gender identity or queer this or trans that. I wanted it to be about men and women and same-sex attraction. And LGBT Alliance, they were very much on the same page, because it needs to be positive and something for us, right? And we've been shamed into, hiding in the closet for so many years, especially people that went before me. And it's like, we're not going back in the closet. We're not going back there, okay? We'll be on top, putting on a show, but we're not going back. So wrote the lyrics, then I started singing the song or recording it at home, and obviously we're in lockdown as well. And I just thought, I really want more voices on this, just to give it more richness, because even if I put on different type voices, it's a bit flat,
it's not the same.
And also,
right.
I'm not necessarily the best singer in the world, so I just thought I need some help here. And
so first of all, that must be a bit scary. Sorry, I knocked into a funny joke, but I mean, once you realize you're going to have to get more people on, like, do you already have a circle of gender critical gay friends, or did you have to broach it with people?
I had to broach it, because even though I've connected with quite a few people now online, these are online things. It's not people within my group of friends or acquaintances. And so this could now represent a moment where it spills over, into real life or normal life. And I thought, well, because obviously I'm going to put the LGBT Alliance logo on the video. But it's just like, well, how long are you going to wait? I'm kind of embarrassed almost as a gay man, because I'm like, where are the gay versions of Julia Long or Heather Bronscole Evans or Posey Parker or Jane Claire Jones? Like, where are the gay men versions who are vocal and out there and really fighting this stuff? So I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to do it. So then I had to think, okay, who am I going to ask to be part of this? Because if I'm not going to ask them to sing and then not tell them what it's for or what it's going to be used for,
No.
because they have to know. So
Yeah.
I phoned someone up and I just say, hey, do you want to be on an LGB shanty? Yay! And this guy is Campus Christmas. And he's like, are you shielding now, darling, because of your age? Anyway, it's hilarious. And his voice would have been great because he used to do musical theater. So I said, do you want to be on an LGB sea shanty? And he's like, oh, amazing, all that kind of stuff. An LGBT shanty. I said, no, actually, this is an LGB shanty.
Great.
Oh, what, not the T?
Yeah.
And I just went, well, just, lesbian, gay, bisexual. It's about same-sex attraction. Oh, so you don't have the T on it. Anyway, didn't hear back from him, so that was I don't know if that was because of that, but who knows. So then I thought, okay, I have to ask someone else. But obviously the people that I know, they know other people that I know. So if I ask someone and they would talk about it to someone else, before you know it, suddenly your whole gay social network could collapse. And there are, and then I think, okay, well, if people would, just think of you as a bigoted transphobe, which is crazy because these people would have known you for years. Like they know who you are as a person. So I think, well, if they want to write you off that quickly, then obviously that relationship wasn't that valuable. But it hurts.
Yeah.
And especially because, when you're on social and you see people posting stuff, usually it's people you don't know. But when they're people that you're friends with and they're spouting this rubbish, it's just like, and they're congratulating themselves on spouting the rubbish.
Yeah.
It suddenly really hits home. So there was one guy that I asked, and he was really up for it. And then I said, have you heard of the LGB Alliance? And he went, vaguely.
Right.
So we had a chat about it. I just said, look, I want you to be absolutely happy about doing this. It's kind of crazy that we're even having to talk about this, but here we are. Are you happy with it? We can do it anonymously. And he was okay with it. And the others that contributed, same thing. But it's this whole thing of, wow, we have to do it in a hush-hush kind of way and in a secret kind of way. And that's frightening.
Well, you've been put back in the closet. These men have all these. You're talking about 4 gay men who've been, in a sense, but it's an intellectual closet, but it's a closet.
Yeah,
they're being told to feel shame for same-sex attraction. It's extraordinary.
I call this it's the new shaming of the gays.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to Bev from LGB Alliance, she asked me a question. I hadn't considered it. She said, "Are you out?" And I was like, "Honey, yes."
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, I mean, as a gender critical person." And I thought, oh God, never even thought about that. Because I don't necessarily see myself again in that box of gender critical, but because now they're being seen as a whole different species of human. It was just, it is sad. It is more than anything. I just felt it's so sad that you have to be so careful about just getting a bunch of gay guys to sing a song about being gay.
I know, it's extraordinary, but it's a great song, and it's brilliant, and it was really stirring to hear. It's great to hear. But I always feel with the LGB Alliance, they have to spend so much time, defense because they get attacked by idiots like that Open Democracy bunch yesterday. It's great.
This Open Democracy bunch, right? That what was the name?
Claire Portia or something like that.
So she has on her thing that she's tracking the backlash against LGBT plus and women's rights. So I asked her the question. I said, does this include your own characterization of the LGB Alliance? Are you also tracking how that is setting back LGBT rights? Obviously the account is now gone. So
that's what they call abuse on the other side, asking questions that are uncomfortable. That's what they call abuse.
Literal violence.
Yes.
and this is like where we have to just pull things back and just go, okay, let's not get all too intellectual about this. Let's just look at life in the cold light of day. What's happening here? And it's interesting that the guys that obviously contributed to the song, like they ask me, what is cis? So it's because they're kind of behind.
Yeah.
But also it's interesting that they don't feel that they have a space where they can ask these questions.
Mm.
And that's why it's so important that the LGBT Alliance is there to give us a home, if you like, and to give us a voice.
Yeah.
Because so many people have no idea what's going on. And I've noticed that especially with guys, if you talk to them about women's rights and girls' rights, it doesn't register.
Yeah,
but
I
if
know.
you say, hey, here's a big bloke and he's competing against women on the sports field, they go, oh, that's not right. So they know something's not right, but
I think it's
navigate it.
Yeah, and it's also a problem, isn't it, of people don't know how to join the dots. There's no dot joining at the moment. It's all seen as separate things. Tavistock is seen as separate from a group of gay men not being able to speak, or not being able to put their names on a song. But these are things are all connected. And something I've said a million times is, and I always like to press this, is we asked Stonewall 3 years ago to allow us to have this conversation, to allow us to start speaking honestly about some of the implications of what they're pushing. And they refused within the day. They said no under Ruth Hunt. She said no immediately. And literally, we were asking for them to bring the toxicity of the debate down so it would be safer to speak. And they refused.
This is what's frightening about it. And also when you look at how Stonewall are trying to come down on Alison Bailey, and with her case, it's a good thing that her crowdfunder is up again. And
yes, it's great news.
Preliminary hearing on the 11th and the 12th of Feb. And this is one thing that actually I had a question for you about. It's like, how do you keep up with all this stuff? Because it's never ending.
It's crazy as well, because it's like every day I get a million news stories that in a normal world would be front page news. Like Alex Sobel calling a woman a bigot because she wanted to have a same-sex or she wanted to have sex segregation. I mean, how is that not front page news? Eddie Izzard was just voted funniest female comedian over Victoria Wood. Like,
you know what? It pisses all over women. It is so deeply offensive. And this is where, again, when there's a girl that says, I identify as a gay man, there's one that I was talking to on social, both anonymous kind of thing. Because people say, oh, you're just a hateful bigot, you're a transphobe. But I really like having conversations with people. And this one for me was very challenging, because here you have someone identifying into my sex and into my sexuality. And I just thought, okay, well, just gently sort of tease out different things. And it took a while for us to establish a bit of trust between the two of us, because, we knew from the get-go we came from opposite ends, completely opposite, diametrically opposed. And turns out that this, what I would call girl, realized she was trans because she realized she was a gay man. And I went, what? How? What? Okay. So basically, first she saw herself as asexual, but then she started reading these gay romance novels or whatever. And the only time she felt something, she said, is when she was reading gay romance novels. And she fancied guys, but she could only see herself being accepted by the guy if she was also a guy, which is, who knows what's going on there. But it's something that I've read more recently with others. There was a detransitioner who recently said that she was jealous of gay guys for being able to get a guy and be a guy. And I wonder how much of this is internalized misogyny, which also makes me think of there's a German person who even got onto the front cover of Men's Health magazine, right? Having had a mastectomy and been on testosterone and whatever else. Looks like a handsome dude, absolutely. And she said in an interview, she could only see herself with a woman if she was not a woman herself. So then again, what is this? What is this? What does that say about you and how you see women and therefore yourself? And what does that say about how you view same-sex attraction? Which brings us back to the shame around same-sex attraction. There was a man in the Netherlands who went through the most horrendous ordeal. He could not accept himself as a gay man, but he could accept himself as a woman trapped in a man's body. So when people say, okay, sexuality and gender identity are totally different things, this is true. But they're also enmeshed in terms of how we, as individuals, try to make sense of the world. And how much of this is rooted in the internalized homophobia? How much of it is affirmed through external homophobia? And again, at the Tavistock, they've been raising the alarm about this, saying, you know, some of these parents actually, that they're homophobic and they'd rather have a straight girl rather than a super effeminate gay boy. So we need to consider how these things are connected in a very, very uncomfortable way.
I spoke to, it's interesting, I spoke to John Ronson about this. John Ronson, who, you know, I thought was actually open to speaking about it, but then absolutely clammed up as soon as he realized how ridiculous his positions were. But John Ronson, I told him about the homophobic parents, and he flat out just didn't believe it. And it's this kind of privilege of straight people who don't think homophobia exists anymore. You know, it's such a short, because they're hanging out with their New York literary group, and it doesn't exist in those circles. But if you don't think it exists, if homophobia exists anymore, you're extremely naive, extremely. And the Tavistock,
we have gay marriage now, so it's all over. It was only not last December, but the December before, that at work, a colleague said to me very calmly, I think being gay is a mental illness, you know, you're mentally ill if you're gay. And then I thought, okay, now I can go, homophobia, and ring the alarm. Or I thought, I can have a chat with this guy and see where his views come from, which we did. Whereas what I see on the TQ plus side is the slightest inkling of somebody's not validating my identity, you know, whatever that means, and they go crazy. And I think a problem there is there's something called mean world syndrome, where if you feel that you're being attacked all the time, you're going to be very hyper alert and aware. And in the words of this wise philosopher Madonna, you only see what your eyes want to see. So if you look at the world through not rose-tinted glasses, but transphobia-tinted glasses, obviously you're going to feel like you're under attack. And I know, obviously, that for people who identify as trans, life can be very tough. I have a friend who is, 6'3", 6'4", this towering character, and whatever he does to look more feminine, it just seems to emphasize the masculine features because, thank you, nature. And the looks that he gets walking down the street are intense. So I know that that's a reality. But I think there's also a huge aspect of it, which is, and what is so irresponsible, what like the likes of Pink News do, they inflate it and they make it bigger and bigger and bigger. So here's a group of people who are already feeling vulnerable or outcast, and they're just creating this whole mythology around it.
Yes,
it's to reinforce it and make it even worse.
Absolutely, it's so irresponsible. It's so irresponsible. It's so evil to tell vulnerable people that people like J.K. Rowling hate them.
Yeah,
you know,
and that they want to erase them from the face of the earth. But what they've done is, as part of that mythology, they've now made the white gay man the oppressor in that story.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you go online and you see people say, shoot the cis gays, or I want to drink cis gays' tears. And it's not just memes that they're sending around. This is also happening in real life. So in San Francisco, around the world, actually, there's what are called the radical fairies, which, have you ever heard of them?
No, I haven't.
Right, so the radical fairies.
I would imagine there's a lot of groups called the radical fairies.
It sounds fun, and it's meant to be fun. This is basically a space for gay men to get together, and because they're men, they just want to be naked and get their stuff out. But it has a so-called spiritual side to it, right? It's of course it's not just, hey, guys being sexy, it's
Of
spiritual
course.
sexy. But the idea is it's about being one with nature, being one with your body, being one with all these men. So they have all these rituals, and it's all about spiritual sexy time, if you like. But also very much a space where men can be emotional and let their feelings out and talk about their feelings, which obviously in society is not something that is encouraged too much.
Yes.
So it was a very specific spiritual, emotional, physical space that has now also been infiltrated, if you like, by women who identify as gay men and demand to be accepted in these intimate situations with their female bodies. And at one of those events in San Francisco, they even put a bench next to a tub. So in the tub, this was all outdoors, you could have a bath in cis gay tears. And it said on the bench, it was carved into the bench, bathe in cis gay tears, or something along those lines.
Wow.
So this whole cis thing is an invention, cis men, cis women, because now we're not just men and women anymore, right? We're now subsets of our own sex class. That's one. But then the whole idea of cis has been turned into this construct of cis oppression and the cis sexism that we suffer from. And now, I got called a batiman the other day where I live. That's like a Jamaican slang for faggot.
Yes.
And it's like, as you say, the homophobia hasn't gone. It's gone nowhere. It's still here. We have, even if legally and socially there's progression, it doesn't change attitudes all that much. So this is still a reality, but we're now being denied that we're still being oppressed in a way through all these social constructs. Now we are told that we are the oppressor. And especially if you're white, you haven't even got a right to say anything because you're white and you're cis. Ooh, this is going to be one of my catchphrases. Ooh, the cisness of it all. And I'm just like, they are inventing this myth because that makes them the ultimate oppressor, the ultimate oppressed.
Oppressed. And it's often...
it gives them a reason to lash out.
And it's often straight people. That's the thing that kills me about it. It's often straight people. Do you know what I mean? They've just called themselves trans, and suddenly they have the right to, shit on everyone else. It's absolutely outrageous, especially when it comes to gay people. Bathe in cis gay tears, really? That blows my mind. And that must make socializing as a gay man in around now kind of depressing. You must come across that type of thing all the time.
Well, it's like I said with that barbecue thing. You can't say, if you don't chant the mantras, trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary is valid. If you don't go along with that, even one iota, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you don't go along with it in the tiniest little bit, or you question something, you're a transphobe.
Yeah.
And they will tell you, trans people stood with us and they fought for us. Some people now even go as far as to say that you wouldn't have any rights as a gay man if it wasn't for trans people. And I'm like, well, just hold on a second now. Credit's due where credit's due. But let's not just say that there weren't any lesbians or gay men around that were fighting. Okay. And it's the same with this It's a Sin program. I haven't seen it yet, but apparently it's amazing. That again gets co-opted to center the trans narrative. And
Owen Jones did it most recently. Hilarious.
Well, even the casting director of that show, he said, now we learned anything from history. We have to stand by our trans siblings. And I'm like, gender identity is different from sexual orientation. Why would I stand by the medicalization of vulnerable, confused teenagers? I don't, especially knowing I could have been one of those teenagers had I been a 12-year-old today. And
let me ask.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I talk. Just to finish that one up, right?
And then I want to round things up by asking you one last question.
There was a gay guy on social, and he said, if you don't stand with the trans community, first of all, you're disgusting, you're vile, but also you're not allowed to cry when you watch It's a Sin.
Oh, for God's sake.
So again, it's about, you're disgusting, I'm going to try and silence you, and don't you dare cry over the memory of the people you may have lost due to AIDS because you don't chant the trans mantras. And it's like, how do these people not see that? That's so wrong.
Let me ask a question. Now, you, I was kind of surprised that you were so quick to jump on and show your face and all this, because obviously you know, you're running a great risk now. You're going to be targeted in various different ways. What made you decide that you were going to forego anonymity and all that sort of thing? You could easily have just used your voice for this song. Why are you appearing on This With Me Now?
There is a saying. What is the saying?
A stitch in time saves nine.
It was something along the lines of, don't wait to make the right decision, make the decision and then make it right. It was something along those lines. And I just thought, you know what? Put a face to it, because obviously I'm not the first gay man speaking out. You know, there's Artie Morty, who obviously you talk a lot with and feature in your videos. And I just think the more people can see others just blatantly stating the obvious, the more they'll go, you know, okay. And it creates that space for them to at least start asking questions and do some research. And again, this is what some of the women that I've, you know, been paying a lot of attention to over the last 18 months, is one of them said, if one of us stands up and, you know, shows that you can speak about these things, then others will find the courage to do the same. And this is what we need. Magdalene Burns said the one thing they fear the most is our voices. So,
yeah.
Well, here's my voice. And I don't know how much it's going to achieve, and I'll get shit for it, but what else are you going to do? Go along with it? Absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if those are the choices.
Yeah.
I'm not going to cheerlead us into our own erasure.
And may I add as well, I mean, sometimes I worry about Artie a little bit, because he's such a gentle and sweet man, and you can see the pressure on him. You can see how much it tells on him sometimes. He's very upset about this. And so to see another gay man like yourself come in and show their face, you know, you make it easier for people like Artie. You make it safer for people like Artie, you know? So you should be very proud of yourself for having the bravery to do this, you know?
Well, I want to thank the women and yourself, you know, obviously, because you're giving such a platform to voices like myself. Gonna get emotional now. But it's hurtful, you know, when they just, even if you know they're just shouting and they're just lashing out, for people to say you're just a transphobe, you're just full of hate, you just have a bitter heart. It's like, you know nothing about what I feel and what concerns me and why I'm in this. And I want to apologize to the lesbians, because here we go, all the hate, see the hate. It's, you know, when there were a group of lesbians at Pride 2018, London Pride, and they were sort of hijacking the start of the parade by saying, you know, this trans ideology is harming lesbians. And I dismissed them like that. I thought they're just a bunch of grumpy old lesbians. I didn't even pay attention to them. So for that, I want to apologize, because it's like, okay, here we have the lesbian call. Okay, I'm listening now. But this is the problem, and this is, I think, why a lot of gay guys try to either just go, yay, trans, like David Pace did, or they push it away, because when you look at it, it's a nightmare, and you're looking at a nightmare. It's an absolute shit show. So I'm just trying to bring some clarity into it. And also with my songs and my videos, some fun and some lightheartedness, because you need that. We can't all be depressed all the time and go, oh my God, this is crazy. What do we do? No, just have a laugh. And humor is such a good way to put stuff in perspective. And there was a quote by Christopher Hitchens. There was something I wrote down once, right, when I watched one of his talks, and I'm still trying to look for that piece of paper, but I can't find it. But it was about the role of satire, because somebody said, oh, it's nasty, or, you know, some people may get offended. And Christopher Hitchens said something along the lines of, actually, you know, it's our duty to use this. It's our duty to poke fun, because that way you're challenging authority. And if you can't do that, what have you got?
And as someone said, if you want to know who's in power, think about who you're scared to offend. You know, that's like, could not be more true of this.
Absolutely. And in terms of the whole silencing stuff, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
That's great. That's great. Well, that's a great place to end it.
I'm not having my ass on the menu.
Good. Okay, good. Mr. Menno, it was an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for doing thank you for doing it, and thank you for having those difficult conversations. And hopefully maybe we'll get you on the mess we're in sometime, and we'll have a more fun than, you know, this quite in some ways sad conversation.
It is sad, but we have to acknowledge that it is. That's why it's serious.
Well, keep me up to speed with what's going on your side of things, and please, anything I could do on my side, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for everything, all the voices that you've given, that you've allowed on your platform.
Anytime, it's been a pleasure.
To any gay men watching this, it's not just me. It's not just Artie Morty. There are quite a few of us, but a lot of us are just too scared to put our head above the parapet, or scared they're going to get fired from their jobs. It's the fact that that fear is there that shows us how serious this is. So connect with others, listen to us, just research and start looking. Wake up, basically.
Yeah, the house is on fire. The house is on fire. Mr. Menno, lovely to meet you. I'll see you again.
Have a good weekend.
You too.